Yo, 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 what is going on, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love? My name is Jamal Pope, aka J Phoenix, and we're going to be focusing on this moon in Cancer while the sun is in Libra. It's going to be here for Sunday. Of course, we're at the tail end of Sunday right now. Now that I'm making this, it's also going to be here all day Monday, and I think we'll spend a little bit of time in Cancer on Tuesday. But by the time you guys wake up on Tuesday morning, unless you're in Europe or Asia, this moon will be in Cancer for a brief moment that day. So, still, of course, like I said, coming off the new moon, now we are actually at the third quarter square to the sun. So we are still in release mode, if you will. Now, it's in Cancer, like I said, and this is where the moon loves to be. It's at home here. What's also nice about this moon is the fact that we don't have all that craziness that we've been having in Capricorn over the last 5 years. We had, of course, the major conjunctions that happened here, especially towards the back, like those last few degrees of Capricorn, with like Saturn was there, and Jupiter was there, and we had even some Mars-Venus action that went through that spot. And of course, like I said, the Pluto oscillating in and out of Capricorn and back into Aquarius, back into Capricorn, back into Aquarius. And we don't have to deal with that anymore. So the moon feels a lot better now that this is the case. It's definitely in, like I said, it's in a better place. It's stronger than the sun overall because the sun is in its fall here. It's in making a square, like I said, but it's in a 10th house aspect. It's in the sun's 10th house. So this is a lot to do with the way that we feel about society, the way we feel about our careers, the way that we feel about the way that we make money, the way that we feel about structures, the way that we feel about order in the world. And because this is in Cancer, you know, we're definitely going to be feeling a lot more emotional about things. I think it's kind of nice that, at least for the first part of this moon in Cancer, it's the weekend. And you don't really see a ton of stuff happen on the weekend, although there have been a couple of interesting stories. But of course, coming into Monday, you're definitely going to feel it a lot more, especially because it's going to conjunct Jupiter. Now, Jupiter also likes to be in Cancer, and that's just going to amplify the energy, especially considering the fact that Jupiter hasn't really been doing a whole lot while it's been in Cancer. Sure, it did. Sure, the sun will eventually square Jupiter, right? As the sun continues throughout Libra. Sure, this Jupiter is going to trine, you know, this energy in Pisces here with the nodes, of course, with the North Node there, and of course with Saturn there. But other than that, Jupiter hasn't really been doing too much. The planet of expansion and wants to be the life of the party hasn't been able to really do too much or make aspects of too much. So it gets the moon here. And this is pretty important, especially coming after the eclipse seasons that we just had. We are still, like I said, in this release mode where we're having to kind of look at our society, look at our careers, look at the legacy and different things like that, and ask ourselves, you know, what do we feel about these things and what needs to be released? Is there any type of feelings that we may have about our belief on how society should look or structures? Because Jupiter, of course, is here adding some influence. But like I said, this Jupiter, while strong here in Cancer, hasn't really been doing too much. It's been kind of in no man's land this whole time. It hasn't been really the planet on the forefront. But the moon does help to kind of highlight it a little bit. But this is still asking us, you know, what beliefs do we have about society that need to be let go of? What sort of emotional attachments that we have here that we need to kind of examine and go over? Like I said, this has to do with legacy. This has to do with your career. This has to, in many ways, do with money. This has to do with structure and order. Now, like I said, Jupiter is an amplifier, but it can amplify the good and it can amplify the bad. So I would say be more on the lookout on Monday, especially as the moon gets closer to the actual square to the sun, which is in Libra, which is trying to find balance and harmony, but it's opposing all of this Aries energy. It's opposing Chiron, or at least it's getting ready to oppose Chiron. So we definitely need to be on the lookout for that. This moon is also going to be trining over to the Scorpio energy. So Mercury, Mars, you're going to be feeling this primarily towards the end of Sunday, and then going into Monday, you will feel that a little bit more. So we definitely have to find our deeper resolve here and find, you know, what really is worth pursuing, what is really worth, you know, I think this is also about the way that we connect to other people. And like I said, let's talk about the Scorpio energy just for a little bit, because the moon is in the ninth house compared to all the Scorpio energy, which also deals with beliefs. And you have Jupiter in Cancer, which rules the natural ninth house. So there's a lot of things about what we believe about society, what we believe about the world around us, what we believe about structure and order, what we believe about systems, right? And what systems are the best. And of course, this moon in Cancer is going to want to come from a more empathetic place, wants to come from a more compassionate and caring place. This is one of those things where we do have to learn that we have to put on our oxygen mask before we help other people around us. And this is also where we have to, there's some nuance here, that sometimes the things that we think may be good for someone else, just because it may be nice and sound nice idealistically. That's the other thing about Jupiter. It can get very, very idealistic, but that doesn't necessarily mean that when you actually implement it in practice, that it's going to work for the wide swath of people. So we need a little bit of nuance here with this. But that Scorpio energy that it's making the trine to is asking us to find the deeper resolve. It's asking us to, where can we find the shared emotion, right? Because this is Scorpio, right? And this is the moon. Where can we find the shared emotion? Where can we find the shared human experience? Because like Scorpio does bring a bit of a psychological edge to things, but it's about where can we find that deeper spark, that the human experience, the human emotion that we all feel. Where can we find those similarities? Because that's what it comes down to. You're not going to agree with everybody. You're not going to have the same beliefs as everybody. And you're never going to have like a 100% match with somebody. So you got to ask yourself, because that's the other thing about Scorpio, because it is that deeper emotion that a lot of people are afraid to go for. That's why it can be a little bit tough. Because, I mean, this is why Venus doesn't like to be here in Scorpio. But the power of a Venus in Scorpio, which is not there, I'm just using Venus as an example because Venus is about relationships. But the power of a Venus in Scorpio is being able to accept someone for the depth of who they are. And this includes the bright parts of themselves and the skeletons that they have in their closet, or the perceived skeletons that they may have in their closet. We need to ask ourselves, to what extent are we willing to connect with individuals despite whatever dark things or skeletons or whatever things that we may project onto them or may perceive that they actually have? This is about where can we find that emotional common ground with people. But like I said, when that moon hits that Jupiter on Monday, you're going to see it inflame so much because, like I said, this Jupiter hasn't really been able to make a lot of really big, important aspects. Until this week, we're going to see it square the sun. We're going to see the sun square it. We're going to see, it starting to, like I said, square this Chiron. And like I said, this moon is going to be on Jupiter. It's going to explode this energy. So you're going to feel it a lot more Monday, and then you'll definitely start to feel it build up throughout the week once the sun actually hits 24 degrees of Libra. That's when you're going to really see the emotion kind of pop off. So I feel like Monday, if anything, is going to kind of set the tone, and then as the week grows, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So don't be surprised if we see some interesting news come out. But that's the thing, if you attach too much to the emotion of things, and instead of attaching to the emotional outburst aspect of things, because this can definitely be about outbursts, especially because Chiron in Aries is very heavily involved with this whole week. We're going to see it as the sun continues. Chiron's going to be really heavily involved with this. We're all reacting and we're all responding. We have to be careful about the way that we react and respond this week as we lead up to this new moon in Libra. So we're having to release a lot of these beliefs about the way that we feel like society is going to look, the way that it's structured, the way that things are in order, because all this stuff is going to change up on us anyways. And this is about having compassion for people. This is going to be a really big next couple of days about compassion and understanding, and especially compassion for ourselves too, because we've all made mistakes. We've all have felt duped in some way by the system. I think that's the thing about it. I think a lot of people are feeling duped. A lot of people, there's certainly a lot of people that are feeling like they've been taken advantage of. But I think everyone to some degree has felt duped by the way that things are going right now. And you have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself for that. You have to find a way to find compassion for yourself. And you have to just release whatever those bonds that you have to these old systems that are collapsing, and realize that, you know, it's time for something new to take its place. You know, but we still got to go through this Neptune going back into Pisces, and then we still got to wait for Saturn and Neptune to come back forward into Aries and finally conjunct. So we still have a little bit of time before then. But yeah, that's what I have for you guys for this moon in Cancer. I think, like I said, Sunday I think is pretty chill. I think Monday is going to be a day where something kind of pops a little bit, but it's going to be a small pop. Like, it's not going to be the big one. The big one is going to be when the sun finally actually squares over to Jupiter, and when the sun opposes that Chiron. That's going to be like the moment where things get like intense. So definitely be on the lookout. I will say, like, if anything that I have advice for this week, for a week like this, especially when the moon goes into Leo, it makes it even more inflamed too, and people are going to be really reacting and responding in a more Leo-like way to all this energy. Just be careful about what you say online. Try not to react and respond to every little thing. Wait till you have information. Wait till you have the details. And even then, meditate on things. Go outside, go for a walk, put your feet in the grass. Don't talk to as many people online unless you're purposely seeking out positive stuff. And talk to people right next to you, because it's going to be so easy for us to just react and respond to all of the things that are coming out online and to take things for face value. This is not a week to take things at face value, especially with where some of the planets are right now and how tough it actually is on some of these planets, especially as Venus is finishing up in Virgo too. So we are going to see Venus come into Libra this week. So we're going to have some major shifts. You're definitely going to feel it, but that's what I got for you guys. But y'all take care, stay blessed, and as always, I will see you all in the next video. Peace.